In this video, we're going to review the function and features of the I/O Secondary Progressions Interpreter program. Let's begin by opening our I/O interpreter. The I/O interpreter opens with the library and the last charts file that I had opened. I suggest always leaving your library open because it shows you that the program is open. Sometimes people close that and they'll click the program and don't think that it's open, but if you look at the top left corner, you'll see that it is. So now the I/O secondary progressions will be found under forecast progressions, but before we open it, I want to show you one of the features of the program that you may or may not be using right now. If you have saved a natal chart in one of your files already, simply click on the name one time. We click on Hillary Clinton and you see that her name is highlighted, and you see that the thumbnail of her natal information is here in the window. Now I'm going to go up to Forecast, open Progressions, and you see that the Progressions Setup window opens with Hillary Clinton's name and her natal chart data in it and ready to go. Now if I wanted to pull someone else from the list, for example, let's pull Charlie Chaplin, I'm going to click down and hold, and I'm going to hold and drag his name over to the Setup window, let go, and there's Charlie Chaplin ready to go to make the Progressions interpretation and list for him. If you are doing a chart for someone and you have not yet made and saved their data card, you can simply go to File or hit Command N on your keyboard, open a new data card. Now the data card, if you're familiar with it, you know that you'll select the chart type, and in this program, the interpreter program, there are three chart types that you can use: the natal chart, an event chart, or a sunrise chart, most often used for people with an unknown birth time. You'll select your zodiac system. In this case, tropical or sidereal is available. And if the default is not your house system that you currently use, you'll scroll to the house system you use and select it. And in the first name box, you don't need something in the first name box, but you always have to have something in the last name box for the program to identify it. But in the first name box, we're going to enter Robert. This is our test case. And I'm going to tab to each field, and I'll explain why in a moment and show you. And we'll call him Test. I'm tabbing again to the date field. If you are using Euro dating, the program will reflect that. I'm using US dating, so I'm either going to enter the name of the month or the number of the month. In this case, I'm going to enter the number 06 space the date 23 space the year, and I have to enter all four digits for the year. And as I tab out of the field, you'll see that the program completes the formatting of the date as it should. Now I'm in the time field. I'll enter the hour, space, no punctuation is required, the minute, space, and AM or PM. You do not enter the time zone. The program will enter the correct time zone based on the date and location. I'm going to tab out of that field, and you'll see that that's formatted properly as well. Now I'll enter the city, San Francisco, tab, and I'm going to enter the state. Now I could enter the country here if I'm outside of the United States, CA. Now I've told the program everything it needs to know to properly calculate this natal chart. I've told it what type of chart, the zodiac system, the house system, the name of the individual, the date and time and location. So I'm going to click the Atlas button. You see it's incomplete, so it cannot be saved yet. Click the Atlas button. The atlas pops up with the most likely city highlighted. In this case, it's correct, San Francisco. If it were not, or I wanted one of the hospitals listed, I simply click on them, but I want San Francisco Central. I insert, and you see that the program completes the card, puts in the proper date, universal time, the longitude, latitude, and the proper time zone for the date and location. Now if I were to choose to save this, I could open a file and save it in that file. Let's open Friends, and you see that I already have Robert Test in there, so this will be interesting. I'm going to go back to the card, save. Now it's telling me that I already have this old chart in there. So if it were something that I wanted to add, I could do that, or I can replace it. In this case, I'm going to replace it, and Robert's chart is there. Now I'm not going to need that file. Now whether I had saved it or not, you'll note that when I put my cursor on that data card, it turns into a hand with a blue sheet behind it. That indicates that there's data here that I can use. I can pull it into, for example, the setup window. So I'm going to click down and hold, And as I move over, you see it forms a little chart wheel. I bring it into the setup window right on top of the window where Charlie Chaplin's information is now, and I let go. And so I have Robert Test there. Now, Robert's not who we want to run this report for, so I'm going to close his card, and I'm going to grab someone else out of the list. Let's select Bob Dylan's natal card, and we'll put Bob in here. So let's look at the setup window. After all of that other work is done, the setup window is very, very simple. I have Bob's name in here, his natal chart, so it's ready to calculate based on his data. And AstroText. Now, in the programs, you can edit the individual reports in your own word processing program, or you can actually create and edit databases so that when you click the button, it's your text. You see that I've already created one called my own text, excuse me. If I wanted to create a new one, I'd click the plus button, I would name it, and I would create. Now, what would happen if I did that is that, just like with this, in my documents, my folder called IO Files, it is creating a folder called AstroText folder, and it will contain all of the files that are necessary to build a report. So I can then go in and edit those and modify them with my own text, with my own preference there, and I could use that. I'm going to default back to the default text, so if you haven't created an AstroText folder, don't worry about it. You don't need to. The default text is there. Next, I set the date range, and this is very simple. Again, if you're using Euro dating, it will be displayed in that manner. In this case, it's US dating. I click the month, and I can move it forward, backward, whatever I choose. I click the date, the same thing, the year, and if I'm moving in larger leaps, I just hold down, and you see it moves very quickly. So I'm going back to 15. And I'm going over next to set the end date of the search. So I've set the beginning date, I'm going to set the end date, and we'll go to 2025. Oops, made a mistake there. I want to start at 5. Click on the year, click forward to 2025. The time zone, if the time zone where the individual is residing is significantly different than where they were born, you may want to click to that time zone. It will be available to you. Or if the time zone is different, but with a progression, that will be your prerogative whether or not you want to change that. The progression type, secondary or NIBOD secondary, and then there's an introduction that you can display or not display. If it's unclicked, it will not display it, and it explains for the novice customer or client just what a secondary is and how it works and what they're going to be seeing in the reports. So your option, I'm going to display it here. Now the program gives me two items that are components of this that I can display. One is a list of significant aspects that are calculated by the program and interpreted. I'm going to click the list, and it is calculated the list for Bob Dylan for a progress chart for the period I've defined. You notice that it's by year, by date. Learning to read this information, go to the manual, and it will show you how to read transits for progressions, and it will display each of these and show you exactly what they mean. This also does moon phases. So here's my list, and then I'm going to create the interpretation. Click the interpret button, and I have my interpretation, as you can see. Now, something I'd like to show you is at the top of each of these windows there are 5 buttons. Each of these are preset formats. In the case of the report, it's the fonts, the colors of the fonts, whether they're bold, it's formatting in general. And each of these can be reset by you to your preferences. So let's go back to this. For example, I want to format it, so I click the format button. You see that I can select the font used in the headers from all of my fonts that are available. Same with the body. I can select the size, I can select the colors of those fonts. The glyphs, all of our programs ship with the IO Wizardry font set. Some of you may have purchased the Pendragon fonts, and you see that I have the dragon fonts in here, so I can select any of those. You can experiment with these because it's easy, as you see, to change them back and forth to whatever you want. I can also set the background color of the page by clicking on that, and I have several different ways to select my colors. Let me warn you though, if you're planning on printing these, you don't want to select a solid color for your background because it will eat up your printer cartridges rather fast. But if you're just creating them to display, and you may want to create one of the buttons for nothing but PDFs or sending on-screen reports to people, HTML, however you'd like to send it, then you can get more creative with it. I can determine whether I want the paragraphs justified or ragged right. I like justified for most of my reports. And then I can select whether I want the cover page. You see the cover page behind me here. I can display the Zodiac and the prepared by. The prepared by, as you see here, shows our information, but when you're installed, it will display your information if you choose to. Or again, I can turn it off, and it will turn it off if I say OK. We will leave it on for the moment. I can set the margins, and I can choose either inches, centimeters, or points, and set all of my margins. And if I click OK, it would make all the changes that I chose to make for this particular button. Same with this button, same with this button. So you have 5 options for presets that you can do. On the transit lists, you would change your colors and so on for each of these from your preferences. You see colors, and you can set the page color. You can set the, in case of a chart wheel, if you were working on a chart wheel, you could set the colors of the wheel. And the text, you can actually choose your colors for each of the glyphs that you would like. Some people have very definite preferences. In this case, make sure that you have selected which preset you're using for the list in this box. And then you make your changes and close it, and it would be that way until you decide to make another change. Now, saving or printing or editing, we'll go over that briefly next. If I want to, I can edit individual reports with my own text. I can do whatever I want with them in your favorite word processing program. So you make sure that you're clicked on that. You go to File at the top of your screen, select Save, and you'll see that it's already named, but you can name it whatever you choose, save it wherever you want. Your desktop, you could create a folder in Documents, whatever you'd like to do. And file format, RTF and Microsoft Word, which can be read in Pages or whatever word processing program you might be using, will also retain the formatting, meaning the paragraph styles, the header styles, all of that information, so that all you'd have to do is go in and modify the text if that's what you'd like to do. I can save it as just text and open it in TextEdit and then do whatever I want. Or in my word processing programs, I can also save it as HTML text if I were to want to display it on the web. I'm not going to save this at this moment, but it's easy to do, and then you would just open it in whatever program you choose. Now, the most common way to send a report or a list or a chart to anyone is to send it as a PDF. That applies to both programs, or both windows. So if I click on one or the other, I then go to File, I select Print. When the Print dialog window opens, I look at the bottom left and I see PDF, and I select PDF, save as PDF. Now if I have what's called a POP3 account, let's cancel this for the moment, and you'll have to check and see if you do, I could also email directly from the program. But I want to save this and I'll attach it later. So I'm going to do Save as PDF. Again, the name is here, but I can name it whatever I choose. I'm saving it to my desktop. This time I'll save it. And I click Save. And you see that my progressions report for Bob Dylan is on the desktop. Let's do the same thing for the list. Click Print, PDF, Save as PDF. And I'm going to name this differently. Dylan progressions list. And I'm going to save it to the desktop as well. And you see that it appears right under here. Now if I double click it, it will open in preview as a PDF file, and I can do whatever I choose with it in here. I can look at it farther away, I can bring it up close, personal. Same thing is true with the report. I double click it, it opens in preview, and I have my report, and it's ready to attach to an email and send to the client or the customer or friend or family, whoever you're making them for. That pretty much covers the use of the IO Secondary Progressions program. If you have any questions, never hesitate. Always be sure to contact us and we will help you with your questions. Thank you.